Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Few days ago, I created this little animation in Procreate that I am super happy about. In fact, I'm so happy that I thought to myself, why not share the process of how you made this animation? And here I am. This video will be most helpful to those of you that want to learn a bit more about Procreate Dreams, those of you who want to know a bit more of how animations are being created, and those of you who freaking love Spider-Man. Now let's get into the video.
Don't let a blank canvas intimidate you. Firstly, I began by drawing a base for the animation. Then I click fill for the entire animation duration. I added an opacity keyframe at the beginning and I made it about 50%. The black was just too black for my eyes. Next thing I did was create a stickman sketch of my character. I also used a reference I found on Pinterest for this. Then I added a guideline track layer above. This helped me place the characters at right positions in the animation. I used them mostly for the placement of the hip and hand movements. When I was satisfied with the movement, I merged the entire stickman sketch timeline into a group. Then I added an opacity keyframe at the beginning and reduced the opacity of the group. Next, I added a layer track above and made an anatomical sketch of the character. Please don't think too much of the shapes I made, for your boy is still learning. Then I merged the entire timeline into a group, added an opacity keyframe at the beginning and reduced the opacity. Now the next step was the line art, just the same way I did the previous ones. I drew a clean line art above the anatomical sketch layer and then I merged the timeline into a group. Now we move to the coloring phase. I created a new track below the line art layer and then filled each cell with the base color of his suit. Yeah, I also made use of some references for this. The next thing I did was his eye marks. I created a track layer above the line art layer and drew a thick outline for his marks and then merged the track timeline into a group. Now at this point, I figured that the animation was a little bit boring. I wanted to spice it up, so I made him change into various of different Spider-Man in mid-air. In order to achieve this, I created different track layers above for the variants. We have the color track, line art track, and the eye mask track, same as I did the previous ones. Now for the background, I'm not gonna lie, I was really tired, so I went over to Pinterest and downloaded this Spider-Man background. Added a Gaussian blur keyframe at the beginning and put it at 2%. Also added a sharpen keyframe and put it to 100%. But then, I also wanted something to happen while in mid-air, so I added a noise keyframe to that part. I would have made it glitch, but there was no glitch keyframe in Procreate Dreams. Next, I added this yellow light above the background layer and changed the blend mode into linear light. Now I turn off the base he's standing on. I then added a layer of white mist above the base layer. This kind of separate the background from the character. Then I added the fence for which he was standing on. I drew this in Procreate, then imported it here. Now this is how I made the character look like he belonged in the scene. I went over to the color track, then clicked on the drawing icon. Now on the layer of a particular frame, I added more layers on top. One was a multiplied layer filled with light blue, and the other was a add layer, which I used in creating rim light for the character. And then I repeated this for the rest frames. I also did the same to the variant frames as well. Now look at him, seamlessly integrated to the background. In order to make it more intense, I drew this pair in Procreate and then imported it here. Then I placed it at the duration of the animation which I needed it to be. I added a move keyframe at the beginning and also at the point I wanted it to end, and that is how I made it move fast. Then I did the same thing for the second spare. I also added this breeze kind of effect. It makes it seem as if the spares are moving faster. Now for the Spidey senses, after drawing it on Procreate, I imported it and split it along the timeline. I also brought in the comic text from Procreate. Then I added keyframes and animated it so it will pop out and pop in back. Lastly, I merged all timelines into a group. Then I added camera keyframes to specific points by zooming in and zooming out when needed. Now this is our final piece. This 4 seconds animation took me over 5 days to create. I'm really glad I persevered and finished it. I really love the final product and I hope you do too. Please like, comment and subscribe to keep encouraging me. Thank you for your time and see you in the next video.